Do you have a TFSA? Are you thinking of having a TFSA? And you're wondering what you should be putting in terms of investments in that TFSA. Well, if that's a consideration that you have, you're in the right place. We're going to be talking about that today. So, just some basic understanding of a TFSA. If you're a permanent resident, once you're over 18, you have room and you could contribute to that TFSA. When you contribute, it's subject to the limits, which has varied over the years. And I'll talk about what a cumulative amount is today. But when you contribute to a TFSA, you do not get a deduction. However, the benefits is that that money grows tax free. And when you pull that money out, it's also treated tax free. So, as you can imagine, that's a great thing to have all this gain and all this growth in an account. When you pull it out, you're not taxed. Now, if you've been contributing to a TFSA and you're born before 1991, then you would have probably used up some of your room. If you have not used any of your room, someone born in 1991 or earlier who has never contributed to a TFSA and is a permanent resident of Canada could have a cumulative contribution amount of 95,000 as of January 1st, 2024. Quite a decent amount of money, right? So now you say, okay, great. I have this opportunity to contribute to something, and I have the opportunity to also have some growth. So, what your first inclination might be, well, okay, I'm going to have this one or two stock that, or this one or two investment that could go through the roof, and I'll have this thing um, grow tax free, and I'll put it out from a tax free standpoint. No, first of all, you have to consider if this investment is proper and it makes sense for you. That's for a different conversation. So that's the first thing. A lot of times, it depends on how we're sold these things, or depending on the marketing hype around particular investments, we may think, okay, this is a great opportunity. But we also have to look at the downside aspect of that. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Because if you contribute and say you discover you have all this room at TFSA, you haven't used it, you put $95,000 into this TFSA and you suffer, say, 70% loss, right? Which you can't recover, right? So you had this loss and you realize this investment is not going to work, it's not going great. You now have a TFSA balance of $28,000 and 500, 28,500. Here is the challenge here. You have now done permanent damage because you have used up your room. In addition to using up your room, you have this loss. And this loss, you're saying, okay, can I deduct this loss? We're going to come back to that in a second. That's one thing you may want to consider. However, where this conversation is going is you may want to consider at that point to switch to something more rational, right? So more a global diversified portfolio. But here's the thing, the damage to that future value has already been affected, and the tax free withdrawal potential is permanent because you've lost so much money. And the losses, let's talk about the losses. You cannot get the tax relief in that you can't deduct those losses. Now, if that amount was in a non registered fund, you would have 66,500 capital loss, capital assets, right? And you could use that loss to offset potential cap gains. In fact, you could go back 3 years, you could bring that loss back 3 years and carry forward for potential capital gains you have going forward in the future. But that is not possible within a TFSA. So we just hit a situation where if you have significant loss in that TFSA, so much so that it harms you in potential, bounce back and the investment doesn't work anymore. You've impaired your lifetime tax-free withdrawals, right? You're permanently lost contribution room, and now you're unable to claim capital losses, and so the tax relief is significantly impacted for future tax-free withdrawals, right? So one of the things you must consider when you're investing in a TFSA is what is the potential growth of this investment? And if you have significant risk, one way you might go, okay, well, I'm going to take the chance because if this thing does well, then I have all this tax free growth. The other one is what happens if you have significant loss? Because if you have significant loss, it's going to set you back, and your opportunities with this great financial vehicle is now limited. So, one thing you may want to consider is looking into using a well diversified investment strategy that can help you mitigate those risks. So, you may want to put, okay, some, funds in the TFSA with high potential return. But if there's a loss, it's not that significant. As well as depending on who you are, you might go, well, I'm just going to, swing for the fence, right? But you should at least consider the potential for permanent loss contribution room and the inability to claim capital losses. It's crucial, it's super important when you're considering investing in a TFSA, because as you can see, the potential damage of that. Hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see you next week, and we will talk about another interesting topic. Take care.